The wineglass shattered before anyone even understood what was happening. Riven Hartley didn't mean to knock it over, but the tremor in his hand was too strong to hide. 1 second he was sitting across from his fiancée and her parents at the lavish seaside restaurant in Leora Bay. The next, he was staring at the crimson splash of wine spreading across the white tablecloth like a wound. It wasn't the wine that rattled him. It was the laughter, quiet, muffled, coded, coming from the 3 people who were supposed to become his family. Riven had heard them switch languages before, but tonight it felt different. Every time he lifted his head, they were already watching him. Every word they shared in their native dialect felt sharp, clipped, deliberate, like they were slicing him apart with syllables he couldn't decipher. Mara, his fiancée, reached out and touched his wrist.
Riven, relax. Oh, thank you.
Relax, she said softly, but her voice didn't comfort him the way it usually did. Not tonight. Not when everything around him felt off balance. He looked at her parents, Draven and Celise Thornwick, 2 of the most respected figures in their wealthy enclave. They had arrived with perfectly polite smiles and impeccably tailored formal wear, but their eyes never radiated the warmth their words suggested. Riven had always brushed it aside. He was used to empty gestures from powerful people. He himself was one of the richest men on the continent, founder of the colossal tech empire Hartley Dynamics, and he had seen enough masks to know how flawlessly people wore them. But tonight, something was wrong, terribly wrong. Draven spoke again in their mother tongue.
It's not what you think,
Riven
There's
hadn't
more to
learned
this
the
than you know.
language, but he recognized tone. This wasn't casual discussion. This was calculation. The kind that preceded danger. Mara shifted uncomfortably. "Papa, can we just—" "Not now," her mother interjected sharply before switching back into the private dialect again. Riven's jaw tightened. He should have asked for a translator months ago, but he trusted Mara. He trusted love. He trusted the idea that marrying her would finally give him the home he never had growing up in a brutal foster system. He trusted that her family's hesitation toward him was simply cultural. It had to be. People didn't harbor darkness without reason, and Riven had always believed people were better than the world gave them credit for. But tonight, as he sat in that glowing golden dining hall, surrounded by clinking glasses and chandeliers shaped like falling stars, he felt something cold wrap around his ribs. The waitress arrived to clear the broken glass, her hands trembling slightly as she knelt to collect the shards. She kept her head down, her dark curls shadowing her face. Riven tried to thank her, but she didn't look up. She paused, hesitated, then leaned close enough that her whisper ghosted against his ear.
Pray, Pit, leave now.
"Leave now." The words dissolved his breath. Before he could respond, the waitress stood abruptly and walked away as if terrified to linger near him. Riven tried to catch her eyes, but she disappeared into the kitchen doors with the urgency of someone fleeing a burning building. Mara's parents had gone silent. They were staring at him again. Riven's pulse slammed against his throat. He swallowed hard, trying to mask the sudden bolt of panic behind a polite smile. "Is everything all right?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Celise gave a thin, practiced smile. "Of course, we were simply discussing family matters." "Family matters that I'm not allowed to understand?" he asked, his words sharper than he intended. The air around the table thinned. Draven leaned back in his chair. "Riven, cultural differences are difficult. Perhaps in time." "In time?" Riven repeated, hearing the strain in his own voice. "I'm marrying your daughter in 5 weeks. You think we have time to keep pretending I'm not in the room every time you talk?" Mara flinched but didn't speak. She looked trapped between 2 worlds, his and theirs. Celise exhaled slowly, deliberately, like she was releasing smoke instead of air. "Some things are not for outsiders." The words stung more than Riven expected. Outsider. After everything he'd built. Everything he'd survived. After giving Mara the world. After opening his home, his life, his heart, to her family. Still, he was the outsider. Before he could push further, Draven cleared his throat and forced a smile. "Let's enjoy the meal. Tonight is supposed to be a celebration." It didn't feel like one. It felt like a ceiling collapsing in slow motion. Riven picked up his fork, but the metal felt icy in his hand. Celise continued speaking in their dialect, something quick and clipped. Mara responded with a strained whisper in the same tongue. Draven joined in. Their voices blended into a soft, murmured storm, one Riven couldn't decipher, but every instinct in his body screamed that he should. His vision flicked toward the kitchen again. The waitress had not returned. None of the servers looked in their direction. It was as if their table had become the eye of a storm no one dared to enter. Riven wasn't easily shaken. He'd survived boardroom wars, hostile takeovers, and the cutthroat corridors of the tech world. But this, sitting there at the table with the woman he loved more than anything, feeling danger radiating like heat from the people she trusted most, unsettled something deep inside him. He leaned toward Mara. What were they saying? She looked torn. Her eyes shimmered with something he rarely saw in her: fear. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "Then tell me what it is." She opened her mouth but hesitated. Her gaze darted to her parents, who were still speaking quietly among themselves. "Mara," he whispered again, but her mother's voice cut over his like a blade. "Riven," Celise said, switching to English for the first time in minutes. "Tell us, when exactly do you plan to update your will?" The fork fell from his hand and clattered loudly on his plate. That question, that tone. Mara's head whipped toward her mother, shocked. "Mama, what are you doing?" Riven's chest tightened painfully. "My will." Celise folded her hands calmly. "It's a normal question. You are a man of vast wealth. Marriage changes things." Draven nodded. "Especially when there will soon be children. We simply want to know where our daughter stands in your future." The subtext hit him like a truck. This wasn't about culture. This wasn't about discomfort. This wasn't even about acceptance. It was about money. Mara looked horrified. "Papa, stop. Please." But Celise leaned in. "We only want to ensure your intentions are pure." "You're worried about my intentions?" Riven nearly laughed, but the sound froze in his throat. Here he was, thinking they were plotting something dark, something dangerous, when all along, it was greed. Cold, calculating greed. But then he remembered the waitress's whisper. "Leave now." The words didn't match greed. They matched danger. Real danger. The kind that made strangers whisper warnings.
Riven straightened. "What exactly do you think I'm planning to do to your daughter?" Celise smiled thinly. "That depends entirely on what you do next." Mara's eyes filled with tears. "Mama, please stop." But Celise continued. "You came from nothing, Riven Hartley, a boy with no family, no history, no lineage. Yet somehow you clawed your way into billions." The way she said clawed made his stomach knot. Draven added, "A man with your ambition would be a fool not to protect his empire." Riven felt something cold coil around his spine. "Are you saying I'm a threat to Mara?" "No," Draven replied calmly. "We are saying that if you don't secure your estate properly, you might become a threat to yourself." Something inside Riven broke. He pushed his chair back and stood, unable to stay seated in the venom pooling around the table. Mara stood too, grabbing his hand. "Riven, please." He squeezed her fingers gently. "I need a minute." He needed space, air, answers. He walked toward the balcony overlooking the moonlit ocean, his footsteps echoing against the marble floor. As soon as he stepped outside, the cold wind hit him, clearing the fog clouding his thoughts. This wasn't about wills. This was about leverage. This was about control. This was about something bigger, something far more dangerous. As he leaned against the balcony railing, trying to steady his breath, the kitchen door creaked open behind him. He turned. The waitress stood there, eyes wide with fear. She looked around to make sure no one was watching before whispering again, her voice trembling. "You don't understand. They're not talking about money." Riven froze. "What are they talking about?" She swallowed, her lips shaking. "You're in danger, and so is she." Riven's heartbeat slammed into overdrive. "Mara?" The waitress nodded, her fear spreading like wildfire across her features. "They're planning something tonight." Riven moved closer, lowering his voice. "What exactly are they planning?" Her eyes darted toward the dining hall. "I can't say more. If they see me—" "Please," he urged. If you know something. But before she could speak again, the balcony door opened sharply, and Celeste stepped out with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. There you are, she said smoothly, as if she hadn't just been discussing his will like a prize to be won. Dessert has arrived. The waitress vanished into the shadows behind the door like a ghost. Celise's gaze followed her retreat, then shifted back to Riven with unsettling calm. Shall we? She asked. Riven forced a steady breath. Of course. But as he walked back toward the table, Mara rushed into his arms, whispering shakily, I'm sorry, I didn't know they were going to do this. He stroked her hair gently. It's okay. We'll get through it. But he didn't believe it. Not anymore. Because as he sat back down, he saw Draven lean close to his wife, whispering something in their tongue. And this time, Riven recognized one word, a word he had heard before, one he knew all too well from his past, the word for eliminate. His stomach dropped, and as the restaurant lights flickered ever so slightly, Riven realized the waitress was right. This wasn't about greed. This wasn't about culture. This wasn't even about control. This was survival, and he was running out of time. Riven's breath caught as the word echoed in his mind. Eliminate. Not metaphorically, not politically, not symbolically, literally. Mara sat close to him now, her fingers laced tightly through his, but her hands were ice cold. Her parents watched the two of them with serene expressions that didn't match the storm simmering underneath. Are you all right? Mara whispered. He forced a nod. He couldn't tell her yet. Not here, not with eyes and ears everywhere. But his mind was spinning. Why would her parents talk about eliminating him? What exactly did they gain from his death? And what did the waitress mean when she said Mara was also in danger? Riven kept his gaze lowered as Draven raised his glass in some mock toast to family unity. But as Riven lifted his eyes, he caught it, the slightest nod between Draven and the head chef at the far end of the restaurant. The chef nodded back, his expression cold and clinical. His stomach twisted. The desserts were placed on the table with meticulous care. 3 beautifully crafted pear tarts for Mara's parents and Mara herself. And for him, a shimmering crystal plate holding a delicate silver bowl of late summer custard. His favorite. His absolute favorite. A dish he once mentioned to Mara in passing years ago. He had never told her parents. Riven stared at it. The air around him felt thick, suffocating. Celeste smiled sweetly. We asked the chef personally to prepare something special for you, a treat to welcome you into our family. Mara lifted her head, confused. I didn't know you arranged anything. We wanted it to be a surprise, Celeste replied. Riven's heart pounded so loudly he was sure they could hear it. Poison. It had to be. He'd seen it before. Years ago, living in foster homes run by crooked caretakers, one of whom tried to poison another kid for insurance money. Riven had learned early in life what desperation looked like, what greed smelled like, what murder felt like when it lingered in the air. This was the same scent. Riven looked at Mara, then at the dessert, then at her parents. Draven folded his hands. Go on, try it, before it melts. Riven lifted the spoon, but not to eat. Instead, he turned slightly in his chair, as though adjusting himself. He accidentally dropped the spoon. It clanged against the floor. A server hurried over to pick it up, but paused when she recognized whose spoon it was. Her face drained of color. She hesitated, eyes flicking from the spoon to the bowl, then to Riven. Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say something, but she didn't. She quietly placed a new spoon on the table, bowed her head, and walked backward like someone stepping away from a bomb. Riven's spine turned to ice. He couldn't wait any longer. He leaned toward Mara and whispered, Don't eat anything. She blinked. What? Why? Please, don't ask, just trust me. Her eyes widened with fear, but she nodded. Celeste caught the exchange. Her smile tightened. Is there a problem? Before he could answer, Mara's brother Valian emerged from the entrance. Riven stiffened. He hadn't even realized Valian was in the city tonight. Valian walked toward them with an eerie calm, dressed in a midnight suit. hands behind his back like a surgeon approaching the operating table. Mara rose slightly. Val, what are you doing here? Valine smiled faintly at her, then at Riven. I heard tonight was a significant evening. Riven kept his expression neutral, but his muscles tensed. He had met Valen only twice, and both times left him unsettled. The man had a face too calm, too unreadable, the look of someone who had never known a consequence in his life. Valine clasped Riven's shoulder. Joining the Thornwick family is a privilege we don't offer lightly. Riven felt Mara's grip tighten on his hand. Valine leaned closer. One we hope you appreciate while you still can. Riven froze. While you still can. He turned. Draven was watching him. Celise was watching him. Even the chef had emerged slightly from the kitchen doorway, observing discreetly. Mara's voice cracked. Val, stop it. What is happening? Valine chuckled softly. Oh, sweet sister, you were never meant to know until it was done. Celise stood smoothly. Enough. We will not discuss this here. But Valine had already revealed too much. Riven rose abruptly. Mara, we're leaving. Draven's smile flattened. You're not going anywhere. Riven pushed his chair back. Watch me. He grabbed Mara's hand and moved toward the exit. But Valine stepped in front of them, blocking the path with a cold, almost mocking grin. Mara's breath hitched. Val, what are you doing? Celise's voice was eerily calm. We tried to handle this quietly, Riven. Truly we did. But you made it difficult. Riven's chest tightened. Handle what? Draven sighed. You should have just signed the documents we sent last week. What documents? Riven's voice wavered with disbelief. The property transfers, Celise answered. The inheritance adjustments. The agreement granting Mara protection in the event of your unexpected passing. Mara turned on her mother, horrified. Protection? From what? From him, of course, her mother replied, as if it were obvious. Men like him always turn dangerous eventually. Riven stared in disbelief. You think I would ever hurt Mara? Intentions change, Draven said coldly. Power corrupts, wealth blinds. We cannot risk our daughter's security on sentiment. Mara covered her mouth, tears falling. Papa, how could you? Riven tried again to pull her away, but Valine stepped forward. You leave now, Valine said softly, and you leave alone. Mara stays. Riven felt something inside him ignite, a fire older than his scars, older than his empire, born from every night he slept in cold shelters, every day he fought to survive, every moment he clawed his way out of the gutters people expected him to die in. He stared Valine down. She's coming with me. Valine smirked. Then show me. He lunged. Chaos exploded. Riven dodged the strike and grabbed Mara, pulling her behind him. Valine swung again, but Riven blocked it with his forearm, pain shooting up to his shoulder. Draven shouted to the chef, something sharp, commanding, and the man reached under the counter. Riven dragged Mara toward the nearest exit, heart pounding. Chairs toppled. Patrons gasped. The chandelier reflections fractured across the floor like shards of danger. Riven, behind you! Mara cried. He twisted just as Valen charged again. Riven slammed his elbow into Valen's jaw. The impact sent the man stumbling, but not enough. Valen wiped the blood from his lip, smiling like he enjoyed the taste. Celise shouted, Stop them! Two servers hesitated, torn between orders and morality. Riven prayed the waitress from before was safe. He prayed she wasn't dragged into this. He reached the door, but Draven blocked it, looming like a wall. Riven, Draven said, be reasonable. Riven's breath shook. Move! Draven shook his head. You are unstable. Dangerous. You will ruin Mara's future. You're insane, Riven spat. All of you. Draven's eyes hardened. We are protecting our bloodline. Mara screamed, Papa, please, stop. You're scaring me. Her father didn't flinch. Fear is temporary. Legacy is permanent. Valian lunged again. Riven shoved Mara aside just in time. He grabbed a serving tray from a nearby table and used it to deflect Valine's strike. The tray bent on impact. Riven drove his shoulder into Valine's chest, sending him crashing into a table. He grabbed Mara's hand again. Run! They sprinted toward the emergency exit, the only path left. The kitchen staff froze as the pair burst through the double doors. Hot steam clouded the air. Flames roared from the stovetops. Metal clanged. Cooks shouted in confusion. The waitress appeared from behind a stack of crates, panic flooding her face. "This way!" Riven didn't question it. She led them through a back hallway toward the rear of the building. Mara stumbled, breath shaking. "Riven, I don't understand. Why are they doing this?" "Because they're afraid," he said between breaths. "Afraid of losing control?" A crash echoed behind them. Valian was following, shouting orders in their dialect. The waitress pointed to the end of the hallway. "There's a service exit behind those crates. Go!" She pushed the crates aside, revealing a narrow metal door. Riven grabbed the handle, but it didn't budge. Locked. Valine's footsteps grew louder. Mara cried out, "Riven!" He kicked the door once, then again, and on the third strike, it burst open. Cold night air flooded in. "Mara, go!" he shouted, pushing her through. She grabbed his hand. "I'm not leaving without you." Valine appeared at the end of the hallway, eyes blazing. Riven shoved Mara out the door just as Valine lunged. The door swung shut between them, slamming Valine back a step. Riven locked the bolt. Valine pounded on the other side. "Riven, open this door!" Riven swallowed hard, his breath sharp and shallow. Mara wrapped her arms around him, sobbing. "What do we do? Where do we go?" Riven cupped her face gently. "We survive. That's what we do." The waitress stood nearby, trembling. "You need to disappear, now. They have people everywhere." "Why?" Riven asked. "Why go this far?" The waitress looked at Mara, then at Riven, tears welling. "Because they planned this from the moment she fell in love with you." Mara gasped. "What?" "They don't want you with him," the waitress said softly. "They want what he owns." Mara's knees buckled. No, that's not true. They wouldn't." "They would," Riven whispered, pulling her close. "Mara, they already did." Behind the door, Valine screamed in fury. Someone else, Draven, was shouting orders. Footsteps scattered. Doors slammed. They were mobilizing, coming for them. Riven took Mara's hand and faced the waitress. "If we stay, we die. If we run, we have a chance." The waitress nodded shakily. "Then run. Now." Riven looked into Mara's eyes, wide with fear, heartbroken, trembling, and he made a silent promise. He would fight for her. He would protect her. He would burn the world down if he had to. He grabbed her hand. Together they ran into the night. The Thornwicks would come. They would hunt him. They would try to silence him. But Riven Hartley had climbed out of hell before, and he had no intention of dying tonight. If you're wondering whether Riven and Mara survive what's coming next, make sure you subscribe to Prime Story Hub. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss the continuation, because their story is far from over.